Tendai Mwari, be thankful unto God. Did Nkrumah's one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictators in Africa? We conclude our Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah series with an evaluation of his political and economic, not only to his native Ghana, but the entire African continent 49 years after he was ousted from his position, President of Ghana, which occurred just 9 years after leading the country to independence. Nevertheless, nowhere are these discussions more keenly debated than in Nkrumah's homeland. There are said to be two broad schools of thought on this issue. Dankwa Busia, named after arch Nkrumah rivals J.B. Dankwa, the doyen of Gold Coast politics and former Nkrumah ally, and Kofi Abrefwa Busia and Nkrumahs. An example of the former is attorney and counsellor at law Dr. Samuel Adjai Safo, who in his GhanaWeb.com articles, The Brutal Dictatorship of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Parts 1 and 2, asserts Nkrumah's enduring legacy to this country is its instability, fake democracy, extreme sycophancy, and bad governance. Nkrumah lacked the qualities of a true leader and therefore left no legacy of leadership for Ghana. Similarly, Peter Antwi Boisako, in How Nkrumah Disintegrated Ghana with Cruelty and Dictatorship, opines, Nkrumah and his CPP government deliberately disintegrated the very fabrics of Ghana with oppression, hatred, intimidation, and injustice, and above all, the moral degradation and corruption that surfaced the CPP government. Moreover, no less a figure than internationally renowned historian, the late Professor Ali Mazrui, suggests Nkrumah started as a democrat but ended as a dictator. Critics point to the 1957 Emergency Powers and Deportation Acts and 1958 the Preventive Detention Act, the PDA, the 1959 Constitution Amendment Act, and the 1964 referendum as examples of Dr. Nkrumah's malfeasance. The fact that the PDA included a provision for the arrest without trial up to 5 years, and the 1964 referendum was the basis for the declaration of the one-party state in 1965, leads critics to claim that Kwame Nkrumah set the tone for dictators to follow on the African continent, such that for many now African leader, tyrant, dictator, and corrupt have become virtual synonyms. Nkrumahs like Francis Kwarteng, in his article J.B. Dankwa and Co., The Case for the Preventive Detention Act, argue that opponents, while conspiring with the colonial forces, for example, C.J.B. Dankwa was a CIA asset by Nana Akai Mensah, undertook an extensive and sustained campaign of terror by opposition forces, for example, National Liberation Movement and subsequently the United Party, that began pre-independence 1955 and included coup plots, several assassination attempts on Kwame Nkrumah, as well as, according to Ekau Nelson and Dr. Michael Giamera in their article, The Origins and the Case for Preventive Detention in Ghana, taking the lives of 30 Ghanaian men, women and children and leaving 300 wounded. It has also been suggested that critics of the one-party state modeled in Nkrumah's Ghana not only failed to take into account the facts of the Ghana model, but also, whether implicitly or explicitly, evaluate the Western, for example, Westminster version of democracy as the highest form of political formation, irrespective of whether it is appropriate. Indeed, Kwarteng, citing Dr. Botwe Asamoah's book, Kwame Nkrumah's Political, Cultural Thought and Policies, notes Nkrumah's CPP government, Nkrumah as the only leader in Ghana's entire political history, holding the record for appointing the largest number of opposition members in his cabinet, although Kofi Busia declined the invitation. In fact, Nkrumah did this in addition to encouraging responsible and effective opposition. The inference here is that while Kwame Nkrumah's critics decried the lack of democracy, it was the case that his opponents were soundly beaten by the polls again and again, to the extent that they defied the will of the people and embarked upon an extremely undemocratic campaign of violence. As Francis Kwarteng surmises, thus the NLM became a front for political losers like Busia and Dankwa to revive their political careers. It is in this context that Professor Ninsin's statement, but the aim was not to liberate the country but themselves as a group from imminent political extinction. Some commentators have queried whether the theatre of European democracy, with its intermittent shuffling of the PAC government every 4 to 5 years, is the best approach for a new nation striving to implement a stable foundation. Kwame Nkrumah advanced a bold vision for Ghana and Africa that initially bore fruit. Economic growth in the first years of government ranged between 9% and 12%. From this foundation, the government presented its 7-year economic plan in March 1964. The plan advanced a mixed economy in which a vigorous public and cooperative sector will operate along with the private sector, with scope for foreign investments. Foreign investment enterprises will contribute personal initiative, managerial ability, and technical skills towards the development of the country. They will also further the growth of similar initiative, ability, technical skills, and habits of saving among Ghanaians. We welcome foreign investors in a spirit of partnership. They can earn their profits here, provided they leave us an agreed portion for promoting the welfare and happiness of our people as a whole, as against the greedy ambitions of the few. From what we get out of this partnership, we hope to be able to expand the health service of our people and feed and house them well, to give them more and better educational institutions, and to see to it that they have a rising standard of living. So we ask the question, did Nkrumah's one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictators in Africa? Was Kwame Nkrumah a dictator or a liberator? What are these characteristics of dictators in Africa? Was the Preventive Detention Act really necessary? Did Kwame Nkrumah's opponents engage in terrorism? Is Western-style democracy an appropriate model for Africa? Did the coup derail a viable economic program for Ghana and Africa? Does the interim National African People's Parliament advocate the one-party state model? Our special guests this evening are the spiritual leader of the Al-Keblan Revivalist Movement, Brother Leader Bandaka, who's our resident guest. He's also the UNIACL ambassador for the UK, veteran activist over 30 years, and co-chair for the interim National African People's Parliament, columnist for the Whirlwind newspaper, author of Messiah Affirmation and Education, an African-centered guide to excellence. Dr. Kwame Osei is a well-traveled African historian, writer, political commentator, and entrepreneur that has been on study tours in Kemet, Australia, and India. He has written over 100 articles that have appeared in a range of international publications and outlets, including BBC, Black Britain, New Africa Magazine, as well as Ghanaian journals, The Daily Graphic, The Catalyst, The Public Agenda. Brother Kwame, also presenter on Insight Radio, where he hosts a weekly magazine show on Saturday afternoons called Inside Africa. We also have Brother Muta Kilimanjaro. He's an historian, trader, broadcaster, and columnist. He possesses a BA Honours in Politics and an MSc in both Politics and Society and Global Politics. Brother Muta currently serves as Executive Advisor to One Aim, an African-centered development organization. Brother Muta co-hosts with Brother Mbuta Anu Street Chat on Umoja Nights and the Global African Connections with Brother Ayo on Tuesdays mornings on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM. He is also a contributor to Dotun Adebayo's Sunday night show on BBC London. Tendai Mwari. So I'd like to say greetings and welcome to our guest, Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Yes, listen, brothers, this is Africa Speaks of Al-Keblan on 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafriwi.com. We are going to take this opportunity to try and link with Brother Kwame We've had a little problem, but let's see if we can get in now. Just give us a short thing.
History is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go, what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
Many people have asked me, is it possible for white people to teach black studies? And I have said, hell no. A man's history is not just some dates and names written down. History has emotion in it. And history is interpretation of events passed by. No white man can interpret my history for me, just as no Irishman will accept the interpretation of Irish history by an Englishman.
Tendai, yes, those are the powerful words of Baba John Henrik Clark and Baba Joseph Ben Buchanan, the late Baba John Henrik Clark and Baba Joseph Ben Buchanan. Sisters and brothers, this is Africa Speaks on 102.5 FM. We do have Brother Kwame with us now. Let me just take this opportunity to greet Brother Kwame. Tendai, Brother Kwame.
Tendai, my sister, and Tendai to the elders in the studio.
Yes, we can hear you. Greetings. Tendai. Right. Brother Kwame, we have Brother Leader Bandaka and Brother Muta Kilimanjaro in the studio this evening. Our discussion this evening, did Nkrumah's one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictators in Africa? Now, obviously this is part 2 of our discussion, our concluding discussion on Nkrumah, as we are celebrating his life and his legacy. But obviously there are a lot of discussions continuing around Nkrumah's legacy, his relevance to Africa, and the impact that he had and still has on Africa, whether it has been, for the most part, a positive one, or has it been a negative one. And that's why one of the reasons we're having this discussion today. Some of the things that we are facing in Africa, are the negative things happening due to Nkrumah, or is it the positive things happening due to Nkrumah? Let's have that discussion. Let me ask you, Dr. Kwame Osei, our main discussion topic, did Nkrumah's one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictators in Africa? How would you answer that succinctly? Right, I'm not sure what's happened there. Brother Kwame, all right, let me go to Brother Kilimanjaro. Is that okay, Brother?
Most definitely.
Yes. Okay. So, as I say, our question, did Nkrumah's one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictators in Africa?
Well, one of the most fundamental things to actually bear in mind is to make sure that I make it clear that in life, theory and practice.
Brother Kwame, if you were speaking, we didn't hear you. So I've given the floor to Brother Kilimanjaro, and it will come back to you. You may have to repeat yourself. Go ahead.
Right. Basically, all I'm saying is, thank you. Well, basically, what I'm saying is that I just want to make it quite clear that in life, that theory and practice is the same thing. But practice and theory is not the same thing. So we need to make that quite clear. There is a distinction between the two, just as there is a distinction between going to school and life. Because in school, people definitely teach you a lesson that actually gives you a test at the end of the day. But in life, you're given a test that actually teaches you a lesson. So therefore, if we look at Kwame Nkrumah's leadership, then we will see within Kwame Nkrumah's leadership, I would definitely refer it to a book written by Chinua Achebe called Things Fall Apart, in which the main character started out beautifully and ended up terribly. Now, Kwame Nkrumah, for me, as I see him, started out beautifully as a warrior, an agitator to the imperial powers that might be, but then again, towards the end of his leadership, he lost total direction of leadership. And that made him, sad to say, a tyrant to his own people as well.
So the part of the question says, did his one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictatorship?
Well, right across Africa, I mean, if you've got a leadership, for example, of the first black African country that actually gained independence, per se Ghana, and then Kwame Nkrumah's leadership. Now, if, for example, Kwame Nkrumah did not do very well in terms of leadership skills, and he was overthrown by military regime, then we have to ask questions. How come someone who's in power, someone so-called intellectual, who has been given the chance to actually show his intellectual skills in terms of leadership, could not actually achieve that leadership skill that he has actually agitated for by actually disposing the imperial powers? Now, when he was overthrown, he actually set a trend right across Africa to say to the people, listen, your leaders can be overthrown if they do bad by the military. And also most of the military being educated in the West and also in the East of Europe, this also shows me that, Kwame Nkrumah, for example, had actually set that trend right across Africa.
Are you saying that Nkrumah is responsible for his overthrow?
Well, the reality is, without a single doubt, when the people start to feel the pain, when the country goes bankrupt, for example, when the British administration left Ghana, they left Ghana with a substantial amount of money, I think within the region of £200 million. When Kwame Nkrumah got overthrown, for example, before Ghana went into bankruptcy, Ghana was actually £127 million out of pocket, right? That's internal, not to mention the external debt. So in other words, Kwame Nkrumah was a man that was actually ready to surrender. In other words, he was all over the place. He lost total direction of leadership. Kwame Nkrumah actually reduced Ghana to what Ghana is today. In other words, he did not only set the trend for tyranny inside of Africa, but he also destroyed leadership qualities inside of Africa.
Okay, Tinamwari. Give thanks for that, brother Kilimanjaro. Let me see if I can link brother Kwame to get any comments. Okay, it doesn't look like I can link him now, but let me ask Brother Leader Bandaka. Now, Brother Kilimanjaro states quite emphatically that he sees Kwame Nkrumah's leadership. He did say that he started out very good, but one could say, fell from grace. And he is responsible for a lot of what you see, the negative things taking place in Africa today. He feels that Nkrumah lost his way, and in doing so has set a kind of trend, a negative trend in Africa that we are actually facing today. What would you say to them?
Well, Tendai, first and foremost, give thanks for the presence of Brother Kilimanjaro, for whom I have a lot of respect, and most of whose views I find that I do agree with. There are occasions, however, when I do not agree with some of his pronouncements, and this is one of them. There's very little that he has said so far that I agree with. I think that the evidence will show that the Osajifo not only started off positively, not only started off strong and powerfully, but sustained his powerful vision for a free, self-determining Ghana and Africa, and ended on that same vision and on that same note. But like any other African leader who is a sincerely progressive leader with a progressive vision, like any other African leader in the history of Africa, who is a populist leader, who has a vision for the empowerment and the true independence of the nation, he was the victim of a conspiracy between the forces of global white supremacy, Euro-American imperialism, and interlopers from within that African nation. To say that Kwame Nkrumah, his overthrow started the trend, I want to remind Brother Kilimanjaro that years before that, 6 years before that, Papa Patrice Lumumba was overthrown and then assassinated. That Olympia of Togo was also overthrown in 1963 and assassinated. And that there were other examples of overthrow. I think there was a coup in Nigeria. The first Nigerian coup, I believe, was in January of 1966. So to say that Nkrumah being overthrown started a trend, I think is historically and factually incorrect. Also, I find it interesting that Brother Kilimanjaro should home in on the fact that there was a debt of some 120-something million pounds after the overthrow of the Osajifo. Which nation on earth then or now don't have a sizable debt? The question we must ask is, what was the value of assets when the Osajifo was overthrown? I want to submit to my brother that the value of assets was not in the millions, but the billions. We're talking about schools, we're talking about clinics, hospitals, over 500 industries. We're talking about, roads being built, telecommunication systems being installed. What was the value? I wonder if my brother has done an audit on what the value of assets were.
Okay, brother.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai, we'll come back to that. Let me see if I can pick up Brother Kwame or say. Tendai Mwari? Tendai Mwari, Brother Kwame?
Tendai Mwari, greetings.
Greetings. All right, give thanks, my brother.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. The question this evening, let me see, the question this evening helps. Did Nkrumah's one-party state set the stage for tyrant dictators in Africa? I hope you heard Brother Kilimanjaro, Brother Leader Bandaka's response so far.
I did.
Oh, Brother Kwame, your. Sorry, Brother Kwame. I'm going to have to call you for another system because you're breaking up. I don't know if there's anything you can do right this minute now to adjust that.
Yep.
No, but you seem to be cutting in and out.
Okay, let me call on the phone then.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me call you. All right, Tendai Mwari. Tendai Mwari. Okay, sorry, I do apologize, listeners, for that. We are going to be linking with Brother Kwame very, very shortly. This is Africa Speaks with Al Kebalan on 102.5 FM, www.galaxyaffili.com. Well, Brother Kilimanjaro, Brother Leader did put 1 or 2 points. You want the opportunity.
Well, most definitely. What Leader Bandaka has done is to emphasize leaders who actually were not as famous as Kwame Nkrumah was, and also who actually were not really that agitative as Kwame Nkrumah was. So in other words, for me, I would look at Kwame Nkrumah as the leader that's been put out there, internationally known. I'm not saying that Patrice Lumumba is not well known. And we know that when Patrice Lumumba got murdered, Kwame Nkrumah got upset about it and then turned his back against the West. And this also brought him a lot of problems, because when he actually agitated that the West actually were involved in the killing of Patrice Lumumba, which they did and which they were guilty of, the West were actually against Kwame Nkrumah for such statements. But that's not the point. The point is the statue of Kwame Nkrumah in Africa is enormous, because here is a man that is so egoistic and with too much personality that he wants to actually impose himself as the leader of the African state, when he actually talked about forming the African unity in terms of Organization of African Unity.
When you say imposing himself as a leader?
In other words, his ideology was that they should come together as one people right throughout the whole African states. That's okay. But what Kwame Nkrumah wanted to do was to actually lead the African unity himself, therefore making him the president of the United States of Africa.
But did he say that he wanted to become the president?
Well, without a doubt, his personality, his movement, he was actually more concerned about how he's going to actually formulate the whole system, that he actually neglected the leadership of Ghana itself. But that's not the case. The case is, he actually went all the way to the Arab nations, well, so-called Arab nations, Egypt and the rest, and tried to sell them the idea of one African nationalism. It would not work because the Arabs themselves were more concerned about pan-Arabism. So in other words, what Kwame has done was try to unite Africa, but who's going to rule that unity within the region of Africa once it becomes a United States of Africa?
Well, I mean, we're making a lot of assumption that he wanted to be the leader of all that. The fact that he had a vision to bring a united Africa, is that negative?
No, it's a very positive thing, but who's going to rule it? He actually
we don't know.
He made it quite clear. He was imposing his own ideology. But you don't need to know. The whole thing is you impose your ideology on people. When you do that,
but when you say impose his ideology, he had a vision. He put that vision out to the leaders at the time. Mm-hmm. They embraced it.
No, they did not embrace it at all. Even Nigeria did not embrace it. It was viewed with suspicion. The Arab nation did not. They viewed Kwame Nkrumah with extreme suspicion.
You've already addressed that in the Arab nation had another agenda.
Right.
But we're talking of sub-Saharan Africa.
And the sub-Saharan Africans too did. Nigeria was one of the ones actually that didn't even give a thought to it at all because they did not adhere to his ideology of Pan-Africanism, which they already know about and wouldn't mind, but who's going to lead it? For them, it wasn't going to be Kwame Nkrumah's ideology. So it doesn't mean that Kwame Nkrumah is going out there and talking about African unity. In other words, once your ideology is in place, you're the leader of the African unity.
All right, Tendai Morai. Brother Kwame, greetings and welcome once again.
Greetings.
Yes. Would you like me to put the question to you again, or are you happy to come in on this discussion?
Can I just deal with this very quickly?
Sorry.
On the question for debate tonight, and with respect to Brother Kilimanjaro, I've never had so much bunkum in my life. And to the first question, Osagyef's so-called dictatorship set the scene for tyrants in Africa. I think it's been alluded to already, but the fact of the matter, and I've got a list here from a source called Global Security. There were at least 11 coups in Africa before Osagyef's 1964.
Absolutely.
Carefully, because I think it's important, because that will put some context to what I'm going to say. So the first coup in Africa, and I don't use the term sub-Saharan Africa because Africa is Africa. There's no sub-Saharan. So the first coup was in Congo, Zaire, in what was called the Belgian Congo, in 1960, when Mobutu seized power and got rid of Patrice Lumumba. January 1963, in Togo, President Olympio gets killed in an assassination process. That was started by the French. Because, again, this is something that people need to understand. People need to Google French colonial part with Africa. And I have to mention a bit about it because that would give some clearance to a lot of the coups that I'm going to mean out. Because most of these coups took place in so-called Francophone countries. These are former French colonies. So just briefly, before I carry on, to explain briefly about this French colonial arrangement, just before France conceded to African demands for independence in the 1960s, it carefully organized its former colonies, the so-called Francophone states, in a system of compulsory slavery, which consisted of obliging the 14 African states to put 65% of their foreign currency reserves into the French treasury, plus another 20% for financial liabilities. This means that these 14 African countries only ever have access to 50% of their own money. If they need more money, how ridiculous that they have to borrow money and borrow their own money from the French banks at commercial rates. And this has been the cause in these so-called French African countries since the 1960s. Okay? And it gets worse because basically France has the first right to buy or reject any natural resources found in the land in Francophone countries. So there's oil at the moment in Cote d'Ivoire. France, by right of this burgers colonial arrangement, they have the right to buy or sell any natural resources found in any Francophone country. So even if the African countries can get a better price elsewhere, they still can't sell to anybody until France says so. In the award of government contracts, French companies must be considered first. Only after that can these countries look elsewhere. It doesn't matter if the Francophone countries obtain a better value for money elsewhere. Presidents of Francophone African countries have tried to leave this arrangement and have had political and financial put on them by successive French presidents. So, in 1960, back to these coups in Africa before Nkrumah, in 1963, President Olympio, who was the first president of Togo, which is neighboring Ghana, was aware of this burgers colonial agreement and wanted to opt out of that agreement. He would not allow the French to take 85% of its resources and take it back to France to build up France. But because he was against this idea, and that was set a precedent for the other African Francophone so-called states, the French kicked him out in a coup in 1963. Following that year, the same year, in August 63, Congo-Brazzaville, another Francophone state, there was a coup when the government of Abe Yualo was overthrown. December 1963, in Dahomey, now called Benin, again another Francophone state, Colonel Songho overthrows President Maga. Again in the Francophone African state, in February 64, a coup d'etat occurs, but is reverted by French forces. Again, another coup in Algeria in 1965, another Francophone state, Colonel Boudouin overthrows President Ben Bella.
Sorry, Brother Kwame, I don't mean to cut you.
Right. Right. So basically, it is wrong to say that what Nkrumah did set the trend for African tyrants, because there was a tyrant already put there by the colonial forces before Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown by Ghana. Sorry, by US, British, Mossad, and other intelligence sources using local Ghanaians, to help them with that plan. Now, moving on. When we look at the origin, people talk about the Prevention Detention Act. People have to understand that was even before Kwame Nkrumah became president of Ghana, because before then, in 1961, he was basically in essence a prime minister of government business. Okay, they won elections in Ghana in 1951, and the CPP became the majority party. And so Nkrumah became leader of government business. The British had to release Nkrumah from prison after having been put in prison with other members of the CPP. So, there was an attempt even to get rid of Nkrumah long before Ghana even had independence. So let me just explain to the listeners so that they understand where the origin of the PDA came from. It is important to also identify to the listeners that they must understand that, the PDA was not put there by design. People have to underscore the need that even in America, before 9/11, there was the terrorist act that was put in place by the Bush administration after the 9/11, because it was thought that America was at risk, and so therefore they had to put in place a terrorism act that would stop America being bombed by, unsavory parties. So just let me briefly go into the origins of what was called the Prevention Detention Act in 1958. So before this, people have to understand that the origin of the violence in Ghana dates back to a period in March 1964 and before the June elections, when Kwame Nkrumah's government took a decision to fix the cocoa price at that time Ghana was using pounds, at £3, 12 shillings per 60 pounds, in response to the fears and loss report of finance and physical problems of development in the Gold Coast to contain looming inflation. So basically what the CP did was they actually introduced a cocoa duty and development funds bill in Parliament based on the Cabinet decision in March. So therefore, what happened was that, in recognizing the cocoa price were joining a boom in the world market in 1954.
Sorry, Brother Kwame. Sorry, I do apologize. Sorry to cut you, but is there any way of making this last point before I go back to Brother Kilimanjaro? Can you make it a bit more succinct?
Yeah, basically, there was a lot of disturbances in Ghana between 1954 and 1957. There was the so-called National Liberation Movement, who in 1954 was launched under the leadership of the Asante Bafo Sekoto. And then what they did, they used clandestine means like bombs, like assassination attempts on Nkrumah's life 3 times before 57, and also they also went on a terror campaign by planting bombs in Nkrumah's house, and by planting bombs wherever Nkrumah went, and also his party went, to try and destabilize Ghana, because they did not think that Kwame Nkrumah was worthy of being president in Ghana. So basically, if somebody terrorizes you, if you have a house, to make it more plain, if you have a house and somebody's throwing bricks in your house, right? Somebody's shooting at your door, what do you put up a fence to protect yourself?
Okay.
You put up security to protect yourself.
All right, Brother Kwame, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna ask you to hold on that point. I do want to come back to Brother Kilimanjaro. I know that Brother Kwame said quite a bit, and the Brother Leader has made some comments, and you may want to respond to that.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, Brother Kilimanjaro, dictatorship. That Nkrumah started out good, but became a dictator.
He lost complete direction of leadership.
All right. Complete direction of leadership and became a dictator.
Absolutely.
How?
Well, first of all, the first thing you need to look into is his style of leadership. Before I even go ahead, can I just say most of the coup that Leader Bandaka talked about, and also most of the coup that Kwame talked about, all these coups that actually took place inside of Africa, most of those leaders, to me, are completely leaders that you could mention on the international arena today, and before nobody even knows about them. But we're talking about prominent leaders such as Kwame Nkrumah, who actually show that once you take out such leaders, it's easy to take out any leader inside of Africa. But however, when you look at Kwame Nkrumah's legacy and his style of leadership...
Sorry to interrupt. Tenai Mwari, I'm sorry to interrupt. Bear with me, my brother.
No problem.
No, I think the point there is that you asserted that the overthrow of Sergeant Kwame Nkrumah set the trend for coups on the African continent. And that is why I made the point which I made, that there were a number of coups, and I made mention to 3, and 3 of many. Brother Kwame did the same and listed some other coups.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you will know that President Balawa, at the time of Nigeria, Tafawa Balawa, was well known internationally.
Not quite. No.
Nigeria, he was well known.
Not quite.
What do you mean not quite?
Well, he doesn't have to be. He wasn't known on the international arena per se as Kwame Nkrumah did.
He was president.
He wasn't agitative as Kwame Nkrumah was.
He was president of Nigeria, but that is irrelevant. That is totally irrelevant.
It is relevant.
A coup is a coup. And there were several coups on the African continent. The question is, and what we don't want to confuse the listeners about, is what were the real motivation behind the coups? And the real motivation was external forces, otherwise known as global white supremacist forces or Euro-American imperialists, who wanted to maintain their interests on the African continent. Now, I've heard you speak to this before. I cannot understand why you're confused on that issue in this particular instance, because you have a beef with Kwame Nkrumah.
Well, not only do I have a beef with Kwame Nkrumah, and you're right to say that I have a beef with Kwame Nkrumah, because I think that Kwame Nkrumah inferiorized the African minds of leadership. In other words, also, if you look at the way Africa was governed, when Ghana became independent, Kwame Nkrumah did not change a lot of the things that was of Western influences in Ghana, right? Ghana had a system of leadership and rules that they've maintained through chiefs and kings and stuff, right? Okay, we wouldn't go through that, but how did Kwame Nkrumah treat the chiefs in Ghana? He actually undermined the chiefs in Ghana. Okay, so when you do that, and also he shows me that throughout
how did he undermine them, please?
By not even paying them mind to exactly what they actually set out to say. Well, this is how we feel about our area and our regions. Kwame Nkrumah actually saw them as a threat to his leadership.
Were some of these chiefs in the pockets, in my understanding,
of colonial imperialists or opposition powers?
Yeah.
Some of them were aligned to opposition powers, and they've got every right to do that.
No, they were in the pockets of the opposition power.
I would not say they're in the pocket of the imperialist power, but they were also opponents, okay, of Kwame Nkrumah, because they also aligned themselves with Kwame opponents in politics. And Kwame Nkrumah did not like that. And that's another form of dictatorship. You cannot silence people just because they do not like your policies. That's totally wrong.
Well, maybe you have to silence people if they are trying to overthrow you and kill you and bomb you.
Well, how can you silence people if they're trying to overthrow you? How are you sure they're trying to overthrow you? That's the first thing you need to do. It's not for you to do that. It's for the court of law to do that. So Kwame Nkrumah...
But he did use a law. It was a law. The Preventive Detention Act.
No, we're not talking about that. I'm talking about the chiefs in Ghana. Mm-hmm. Okay, how he dealt with the chiefs in Ghana. The democracy that was given to Ghana is Western democracy, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, are you telling me that Kwame Nkrumah, so-called intellectual, has not got within himself an ideology to actually lead Africa, but actually follow what was said and put in place by the British? There should have been another form of leadership and rules of how to govern Ghana, and not just the continuation of the Westminster style of leadership. I understand that the British were the ones that actually created a lot of the political institutions inside of Ghana, and also knowing fully well that Kwame Nkrumah is not an experienced politician. He was actually made. Okay,
when you say experience,
he has never held any political position inside of Ghana. Okay,
well, anybody that was holding political position at
was
that
the
time
imperialist.
Was under
right.
imperialist.
So what do you? So what do you do?
Do you see that as something good?
No, not at all.
Right.
No,
so
not at all.
It may be in Africa's favor then if you get leaders that are coming out of the people, coming out of the grassroots, rather than coming out of...
That's fine by me, but what I'm trying to say is if he has never held a position of office in terms of political office, or even inside Ghana or out of Ghana, or even chieftaincy titles, or even how do I put it, administration skills in big corporate industry, to see how government is managed, how businesses are managed, and also to study Machiavelli. I don't know if Kwame Nkrumah studied Machiavelli or not, to actually know about American foreign policy and how it works, and to know fully well.
But I'm sure many of the leaders in Africa have or did not study half the things that you're mentioning. But what we do know that Kwame Nkrumah was very learned. Let me go to Brother Kwame. Brother Kwame, do you have any response to what Brother Kilimanjaro's just shared?
Yeah, a lot of what Kilimanjaro says is basically baloney, because basically, for me, and we've had this debate in Ghana. He just talking up to the Danko Buzier. He has to understand that one, right? What is a dictator, right? Two, he doesn't understand the Ghanaian sense in terms of Kwame Nkrumah did have a good relationship with the chiefs. If he didn't, right, how was he able to get the land? He didn't steal the land. How was he able to get the land to actually do all that development that he did? He had to consult with the chiefs, with the chiefs and the local people to actually, do the development that he did. A classic example is building Tech in Kumasi. Another example is building the Akosombo Dam in Akosombo. He has altered with the chiefs at a Grand Durbar to actually commission the Akosombo Dam after consultations with the Arab people. So I think to say that Kwame Nkrumah, did things without consulting anyone is I think is not really understanding what Ghana and Kwame Nkrumah were trying to do at the time. And second. Of course it was. There were more than, like I said to you, even before Kwame Nkrumah came to Ghana, he was already on the radar of the CIA and the FBI because Kwame Nkrumah was, linked himself to people like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, all those great Pan-Africanists, and then the communist in Manchester. So he was already on the radar of the CIA and the FBI before coming to Ghana in 1947. When he came to Ghana, right, he was part of the United Gold Coast Convention. But when he saw the attitudes of those Uncle Toms, including Buzia, Dankwa, and the others, he took out, he went out of them and wanted to set up his own party because he understood the need for Ghana to have its independence now, to be free from colonial rule. The others, Buzia, Dankwa, Akoeje, Power Grant, the others, didn't want independence now. They wanted a gradual independence, i.e., they wanted an independence based on the fact of when it was okay for the British to vacate Ghana. Right? Next, what people have to understand is that, the British were basically creating an apartheid state, like they do everywhere. They went to Australia, created apartheid. They went to South Africa, created apartheid. They went to Zimbabwe, created apartheid. In Ghana, there were certain places in Kumasi and Accra and the big cities where black people could not go to. Right? This was a form of extended apartheid that was existing in Ghana, and the need for independence was greater because of this behavior. And like I said last week, Britain was using Ghana's private commodities like gold and cocoa, not for the development of Ghana, but taking out that money from cocoa and gold and using some of that money to help develop post-war Britain. So we have to understand the landscape and the political nature at the time when Kwame Nkrumah came to Ghana, that allowed him to do the things that he did and to rule the way that he did. And he talks about some of these coups, yeah. What he must understand is that white supremacy, and I make no apology for this, white supremacy is the undergirding for the formation of his coups. I've already told you about the French coups and the French colonial impact, whereby they want to keep a tight leash on Africa. And any president who dares of this colonial impact is taken out. That's why I gave the example of Olympics in Togo. Lumumba is a classic example. Lumumba was no dictator. Lumumba was voted for by the people, by the mass movement of people, from the farmers,
okay,
to women, all the way through.
Okay, Brother Kwame, I just want to put this question to both yourself and Brother Kilimanjaro. Now, just before we open the lines, I'd like to put to you, do you feel that the coup derailed a viable economic program for Ghana and Africa, or do you feel it was due to Nkrumah's leadership? Can you be succinct, please, so we can get to the callers who have been trying for a while?
Well, certainly, it was not. It was certainly derailed, and it was a viable plan because Nkrumah had a 7-year development plan from 1962, and even declassified CIA reports, right, suggest that if Kwame Nkrumah had not been overthrown, Ghana would have been an industrialized, modern state by 1970. Because of the 500 industries he built in and around the country, and also the system of education, which was the highest in Africa before the coup, and other infrastructure that he put in place that made Ghana a modern showcase of economic development for Africa. What people like Kilimanjaro fail to understand, and I've got the documents here right in front of me, they are declassified CIA files that from March 1964, Britain and America, they worked day and night to get rid of Nkrumah. Unfortunately, because of time, I can't go through these documents, but I've got the documents here, right? It says here, right, other American declassified documents also show that American officials started plotting against Nkrumah in February 1966, almost 2 years before the coup, and they did this by sabotaging the Ghanaian economy. And I told you before about some of the reason for the PDA, because Nkrumah wanted to control the process of the coup, because he knew the external forces would want to try and control it. And this is bore fruit in this document of 1964, where British and American officials started plotting against Nkrumah by sabotaging the Ghanaian economy. That created the conditions that led to the coup.
But first thing first is to understand that any coup that takes place, be it in any country, international, Africa, or anywhere, definitely will hold back the economy of the nation. So it did hold back the economy of Ghana. Any coup inside of Africa destroys Africans' growth and economic growth. But I must say,
do you think that's the purpose of why the colonial powers staged and waged a coup?
Well, it's nothing to do with colonial powers staging and waging a coup against Ghana. It's something to do with the mismanagement of Ghanaians' economy by Kwame Nkrumah's personality and his behaviorism. And also, I need to emphasize that also, if you know about American foreign policy, and you've studied Machiavelli very well, you would know that American foreign policy is based on Machiavelli's The Prince, which is basically you go out there, you take what's good for America, you steal it or whatever you got to do. So Kwame Nkrumah should have been wise enough as an intellectual to know that he has to hold the whole of Ghana together and also protect the sea waters and sea lanes of Ghana. In other words, have a very powerful navy that's able to protect Ghana. But how is he going to do this? He has to ally himself with another foreign power to actually protect the seas of Ghana, without which Ghana industrialization is meaningless. And Ghana industrialized too fast.
Which other foreign nation?
Is for Kwame Nkrumah's regime to actually align themselves with a very powerful nation that has got a very powerful navy that could actually compete and protect it from American invasion of Ghana and other people. Because you got to remember, the sea, whoever controls that sea lane, the waters, for example, of the shipment of goods, controls what's happening inside of Ghana. And if Ghana is not strong enough to protect its own sea lanes, then Ghana has a problem. So Kwame Nkrumah's industrialization was what I would say a very fast industrialization, which is of no good to any African nation to industrialize that fast and very quick.
Okay, Brother Kilimanjaro. We've got a couple of texts before I open the line. It says, please ask Kilimanjaro if the people that overthrew Nkrumah had such good plans for Ghana and Africa, why is that none of them achieved more than Nkrumah did?
You know what I mean?
A good question.
Well, what did Kwame Nkrumah achieve?
Especially, let me just add that.
I'm going to mention what.
But you mustn't pretend as though we haven't had, we have not been having a discussion and points have not already been made. I said to you, I put the point to you, and I know you're going to repeat this over and over again.
Maybe not.
Day, night, and daylight and deep night. You're going to repeat it over and over again that he was an economic failure, and the argument that you're putting is that because there was a deficit of 120 odd million when he was overthrown, and I put it to you that he had created billions of pounds in assets. You have not addressed that issue. He had the nation had near full employment. Millions of children were going to school for the first time, never had access to education prior to Kwame Nkrumah's government. Millions of people had access to health care. Clinics were built. Hospitals were built. Roads were built. Thousands of miles of roads were built under Kwame Nkrumah. Airline, the Ghana Airways was also created. A steamship company was also created. These were amongst the billions of pounds of assets that he put in the hands of the people. Real wealth is not in money, as you know. Real wealth is in assets. And he created assets to the tune of billions of pounds. I will take billions of pounds of assets, and you can keep the millions, the 120 million.
Let me quickly address that issue. Let me address that issue. One of the first things that Leader Bandaka need to realize is that it's something to say you're creating something that's fine. But you have to create something that is profitable. Ghana having Ghana Airways that runs to which nation? That runs to Egypt and Russia. That's not profitable. Which Ghanaians are going to Egypt and Russia on holidays to do businesses? Most of them are going to America and England, and traveling on those Ghana Airways would actually create wealth for Ghanaian Airways to actually be in position today. Kwame Nkrumah directed through mismanagement.
Is that why his government was showing an economic growth of 9 to 12% a year?
Well, if
sustained growth from that 9 to 12% a year for several years?
It's easy to answer that, Leader Bandaka. If I give you £100, you could show off with £100. But if you cannot multiply that £100 in 2 years, then question has to be asked as to how you actually invested that £100. So Kwame
invested in assets.
Well, the assets
billions
are no good.
Of pounds of assets.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Diverse agricultural industry.
All the things that Kwame Nkrumah invested his money in were non-profitable things.
Construction
did not achieve
of houses.
No.
It did not achieve nothing for Ghana.
Sorry,
he didn't achieve nothing for Ghana. So if you got to put something in place, make sure whatever you're putting in place is actually profitable.
Okay, let's hear from Brother Kwame.
Yeah, I mean it's quite immature from I don't know if he's been devil advocate, but let's go ahead to say what Kwame Nkrumah did not achieve. He refined before his overthrow, right? He nearly completed a gold refinery. That would have given Ghana billions in earnings if it had not been removed. Because the gold that was processed, excuse me, if I just say, let me have my say, the gold would have been processed in Ghana and was sold in Ghana, would have been sold in Ghana, not taken outside. 2, right? Ghana, before Nkrumah was overthrown, was a net exporter of food. A net exporter. It had enough food to feed itself and was feeding other countries. Today, Ghana is a net importer of food. 3, right? The Akosombo Dam, right, was paying for itself. Before, even during the aftermath of the coup, the Akosombo Dam was providing electricity to neighboring countries, Burkina, Togo, Mali. You understand? It was paying for itself. And in actual fact, the debt was paid back in 1987. Right? If you look at even some of the infrastructure that he built, all the roads, that is infrastructure to develop an economy for prosperity. The British left no roads there. To educate a people takes money. To help a people takes money. To build a new city, a new industrial base like Tema, to build on-the-road railways, to carry the goods from Accra to Kumasi, from Tema to Cape Coast, it takes money. So that's why he had that debt, because most of the money that was left over, and that was not saved by the British, by the way, for people who, like you, who want to say that the British saved in the money. No, because he was government, he was leader of government business.
Calling now on 07983 852 952 or 07538 005 634. Text in on 07572 222 156.
Jendai Mori, it says, laugh out loud. Anyone who considers 200 million a lot of money for an entire country, especially one underdeveloped by a century of colonial rule, is a joker. It says America is currently trillions in debt. It says, okay. Can we be careful with our language, please, brothers and sisters? Can't read this stuff. Right, okay. So Nkrumah learned much before, during and after his presidency. His overstanding of the force of white supremacy would have deepened as his experiences widened. He had no comprehensive template for what he was attempting as a head of state. But no other African independence leader left behind more work that was designed for us, the future generation. The systematic nature of the beast are up against. Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. For these lessons, the subject deserves our utmost respect.
Absolutely.
This one says, rise. Oh, okay. We have caller on the line. Let me take this caller, and this is Brother Dulani. Hold on, let me put Brother Dulani on. Tena Moore, Brother Dulani, how would you like to join the discussion?
Greetings, my sister.
Greetings, my brother. Now, Brother Dulani, I'm asking you to be patient with me because I'm going to be cutting people. So please be as succinct as possible because the lines are going like mad. Tena Moore.
Thank you, my sister. I'd like to greet brother leader Bandaka.
Tena Moore, greetings, my beloved brother.
Can you hear me? Is there any feedback?
We can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, my brother. 30 seconds gone already.
Yes, I would like to say that, and I'd like to greet Brother Kilimanjaro and Brother Kwame. And now I'd like to greet everyone in the spirit, in the honorable spirit of our great and mighty ancestors.
Mm-hmm. Give thanks.
Now, definitely. Yes, I would like to say that I have a tremendous amount of respect for Kilimanjaro. I think he has a very a profound mind. He's a very sharp mind. He's a very precise brother. However, on this particular issue, the reasons he gave from I listened to him about Kwame Nkrumah, the reason why he seems to disagree or somehow have an issue with Kwame Nkrumah, the reason he gave are very, very weak reasons. They're very weak. He opposed Kwame Nkrumah because Kwame Nkrumah have a big vision. He opposed Kwame Nkrumah because Kwame Nkrumah wanted to unify Africa. He opposed Kwame Nkrumah because Kwame Nkrumah wanted to be the president of this grand vision. And I'm saying to myself, what is wrong with Kwame Nkrumah want to do that? If Kwame Nkrumah have a vision for Africa, what is wrong with Kwame Nkrumah having a vision for Africa? He, instead of Mr. Kilimanjaro, which I have tremendous respect for, says that that is good. He says that to want to build Ghana rapidly was good. Want to do all these things are good. However, he has a problem because he was Kwame Nkrumah. And I'm saying to myself, it doesn't matter who it is. If you have a vision for Africa or for our people, and you come forward with it, we should embrace it that you're going to be good. If you're going to judge a leader, judge him, say, by his bank account in the West. How many villas and how many Rolls Royce here, how he has embezzled Ghana money. Did he do all those things? No. And I think we have to be mindful of that. We have to judge our leaders by their progress, by their vision. And I don't want to take up too much of your time on the phone, but these I find it very, very strange. I find it very distorted and contorted to put Kwame Nkrumah on trial because he didn't fulfill his vision, because he wanted too much. I think that is very unfair, and it's a very unfounded and a groundless way to judge a leader by.
Greetings. Greetings to everybody in the house. And the contribution.
Namari, blessed love. Sorry if I have to cut you, but I'm going to ask you to be very succinct. Go ahead.
I'll make it quick. First thing I want to say is that as a people, we have a habit of not really studying our leaders and trumpeting what our competitors say about our leaders. Nkrumah is a special leader in the sense that Nkrumah wrote more than 12 books where you can actually see all his thoughts, his ideology, and his challenges. And even when he was, even after when he was overthrown, when he was in Guinea-Conakry, he was still writing about, the plans that need to be initiated for us to move forward as a people. So because you see, some of our young people are hearing some of this discussion, and they're just getting I suppose with Elder Mbadaka and Brother Kwame, we're probably getting a much more balanced thing. But you see, sometimes we follow. You see, Nkrumah wrote about himself. Anybody that wants to know about Nkrumah don't have to go to a third party. All you have to do is just read his books. There was a mention about Nkrumah wanting to be the first president of Africa. That is rubbish. That is one of the excuses that the Tafawa Balewa group gave. And who was the Tafawa Balewa group? They were the groups that were encouraged by the British government not to follow Nkrumah's ideology. Nigeria wasn't a progressive country then. Neither is it now. Nigeria still teaches its children that Bongo Park discovered River Niger. And so Nigeria wasn't a progressive country. Nkrumah's ideology was progressive. And if our people don't see that, then we're in serious trouble. But that's my contribution. Thanks very much.
Tendai Mori, give thanks, Tendai Mori. Let me just read out a couple of these texts, and it says, right, if Ghana is so rich, why is Kwame living here? That's what Kwame will say, I guess. Kilimanjaro is next text is Kilimanjaro is making statements without backing them up with any facts or context. He has no evidence for the things he is saying, or if he does, he certainly not presenting it on this show. Wadada says some of our brothers and sisters are against Nkrumah because he married an Arab. He hasn't answered the question. Please ask Kilimanjaro, if the people that overthrew Nkrumah had such good plans for Ghana and Afrika, why is none of them achieved more than Nkrumah did? This one says, has Ghana have a navy to stop America or the British Navy? I'm not sure that question, but some did. Ask Kilimanjaro. No, we answered that one. Rise up all in the ship. Thanks, brother leader Bandaka and Empress Kai, for the factual and logical representation in the reasoning. Continue to enlighten us, brother Kwame. Spot on. Garvey lives, Mosiah lives, Vudum. We have brother Kwame. Tenamari, brother Kwame. Sorry, I'm going to ask you to be succinct again. Go ahead.
Hello, greetings to the Galaxy family.
Greetings.
Tenamari.
I'm not well read about Nkrumah, but I'll tell you what I know.
30 seconds to do it.
In the 1960s, in fact, was bringing us to the 21st century, and his ideas was a little too advanced for it. I'm talking of a guy who wanted to unite Africa, for Africa to spend one currency and trade with each other, like what we see in Euro. In fact, it's not an authentic idea from Wazungu, it's an idea stolen from Nkrumah, an African man in the 60s. I'm also talking of an African man that built an atomic, that was thinking of building an atomic energy. Through that, we probably could have manufactured our own weapons today. He wanted one army for Africa. In fact, everything Nkrumah wanted to do today is what we are questioning now. You see what I'm saying? So he built silos. He fought for fair trade. That's to say, why are you offering, let's say, French people a different money and offering me, a cheaper, price for my goods? Therefore, I'm not selling it. I mean, he stood for anything we are now fighting for today. But there is one thing Kilimanjaro said, which I also agree with him. His unity for Africa became so much of an obsession that he became a little extravagant, that money was misused. In terms of helping other countries, I think Guinea and other countries to fight for independence, and he spent a lot of the Ghanaian.
Tendai Mari, how does that constitute misuse of money, my brother? When European countries fund other countries for, in pursuit of their own interests, I mean, do we consider it as misuse of money?
It's true, but you see, at the time, we weren't developed enough to engineer.
Give you an example. Sorry, my brother, because I like to deal with facts, you see. Take, for instance, when Guinea became independent in 1958. The French, in their anger because Guinea would not buy into their neo-colonial package, the French literally trashed Guinea before they exited, before they left. They trashed the country before they left. And so the Secretarianist government had nothing to start with. And Ghana granted them a £10 million loan. Or grant. Yeah. Is that misuse of money?
No, but I'm sure aside from the 10 million, a lot more was spent. And not only on Guinea, but on other countries too. Honestly, all gets
misuse, if it's investing in developing developing a Pan-African united force that can protect the African continent, how is that misuse of money?
You see, his intentions was good, but it was a case of a one-man army here. And he needed the cooperation of other individuals. But let's not forget, there were other Africans, whether it was excelled by jealousy or envy.
Secretary, he had the cooperation of Modibo Keïta of Mali. He had the cooperation of various other nations. In fact, he had the cooperation of Ethiopia, the Emperor Haile Selassie. They worked very closely together. The fact is that he had the support and cooperation of a number of leaders across the African continent. Not all, but quite a number of them.
I mean,
but not all of them.
They were called the Casablanca Bloc, my brother. And Brother Kilimanjaro knows this.
Sorry.
I know, brother. You see, it's just that not all of them were on his side. He's being assassinated. We're not held by only Ghanaians only. I know there were other people also behind it, other African leaders also behind it, that helped collaborate the entire show. You know, but
other stool pigeon puppet leaders.
Very well. It's what we are thinking today. That was back then. This is the vision he was giving us today. He wanted to form Africa in a way away from the world, just like what the Chinese have done. But we couldn't see through. It was a little too advanced for us. In fact, he made one metaphorical remark to Ghanaians that if he knew it was milk that we wanted, he would have made a tap milk so that when we open it, milk will come. He was just making that statement metaphorically.
Okay. Okay, give thanks, my brother. Sorry to cut you, but we do have a few callers still waiting. Thanks for your contribution. I will give Brother Kwame and Brother Kilimanjaro an opportunity to make some responses. But before I do that, I'd like to bring on Brother Bunchi. Is that right? Is that right, Brother Bunchi?
Yeah, Bunchi, yeah.
Okay, my brother. Sorry, I'm going to have to give you pure 1 minute wonders now. Go ahead.
Okay, Tendai Mori.
Tendai Mori.
I'm going to keep it brief. First of all, because a lot of the points I was going to make have already been covered, and I want to keep it brief anyway. And first of all, what was it Muta Kilimanjaro said about Nkrumah wanting to be the leader of Africa is, of course, pure supposition, is all opinion. And what we've got on the facts of that is that when Nkrumah signed an agreement with Lumumba, that wasn't made public until after Lumumba's death. A Ghana-Congo agreement, similar to the Ghana-Guinea agreement, where there was going to be unilateral cooperation, all that sort of thing. The capital of that agreement was going to be in Kinshasa, automatically making the leadership of that Ghana-Congo agreement it would have been Congolese leadership. That goes against any idea of Nkrumah wanting specifically to be leader of a united Africa. Secondly, about the whole tyrant thing, everybody's democracy is different. Every country you go to, even in the West, democracy is different. So the one-party state Nkrumah tried to push through in, I think, 1964, he still had, as been mentioned, as been hinted at, he had representatives of what was his opposition drafted into his party. So although that in the end kind of stood against him because they were able to betray him with their better positioning, it shows that he still wanted to hear their voices and still wanted them to contribute to the leadership of Ghana.
102.5 FM, www.galaxyfreeway.com. Text, will you be talking about Nkrumah forever? Kilimanjaro, that was one person. Next person is Kilimanjaro, last rendition on Nkrumah. He made reference to his sexuality because he didn't have a girlfriend while he was studying, and that he was with a white woman and taking advice from his secretary. I didn't hear that, but anyway. Sorry to say it, if this was a boxing ring, Brother Kilimanjaro would be stumbling like he just received an uppercut from Mike Tyson. Brother Bandaka and Kwame spear him. Probably spare him. This person said, this is one issue where I disagree with Brother Kilimanjaro. The reason for opposing Nkrumah are shallow and frivolous. I'm surprised that Kilimanjaro uses such distorted and low standard to judge a leader. I don't understand his reasoning in a practical way. I find it very strange that Kilimanjaro thinks this way about leadership. We can't take any more calls. Sorry, brothers and sisters. This text says, any man or woman who has a vision of liberation and prepares to put themselves in the firing line and lead, in capital letters, that vision deserve our respect, not our condemnation.
Absolutely. Give thanks for that. Word, sound, and power.
Tenamori. Right. Okay, I'm going to take some closing words. And I'm really sorry, brothers and sisters. I know some of you were waiting and didn't get an opportunity and kind of waiting a bit long, and they put the phone down or the phone cut out or the minutes went, I'm not sure. But we are going to go ahead with a part 3 next week because the discussion is so hot and everybody have something to say and didn't get an opportunity to come on. And I've got lots of text here, but I'm asking, please, when you're texting, can you please be a bit more, edit your language.
All right.
Edit your language, brothers and sisters, because I can't read them kind of texts. Brother Kilimanjaro, will you be available next week?
Most definitely.
Okay, brother, let me check on Brother Kwame. Whoa. Let me check Brother Kwame, see if Brother Kwame is available for next week. Tell me I'm right, Brother Kwame. Would you be available for next week?
Most certainly, most definitely.
Okay, and I know Brother Leader, our resident guest, will be. So I'm going to take some closing comments now.
You don't ask me nothing. You just assume.
You're the resident.
You like Brother Bob. You just make assumptions, right?
Yeah, of course. Before I take closing comments, and they have to be 1 minute the closing comments. It says, hi, Bandaka and guests. Can you please answer questions below? What is your favorite place in Jamaica and Africa? Okay, maybe this is a discussion for another time. I'm sure the questions are more than relevant, but just not not today. Tendamwari. Can I have some closing comments from you, brother Kilimanjaro?
Well, thank you so much. I think Leader Bandaka and Kwame needs to understand also that it's one thing to be a leader, but it's another thing to also squander the money that you find in place when you come into office. Now, we know that Kwame Nkrumah actually bought himself a personal yacht. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but we need to find out where he got the money to buy that yacht. And also, can I just say that most people I understand are Nkrumahist. There's nothing wrong with that, but like I always emphasize, I myself, I have a personal respect for Kwame Nkrumah as a leader when he first started out, but I lost respect for Kwame Nkrumah towards the end of his leadership, because he lost total vision of leadership and the control of Ghanaian economy. So therefore, for me, he started out beautifully, but ended up terribly, terribly as a leader. And for that, and also, with all due respect to you, Sister Kai and Leader Bandaka, if I may just say to your listeners, all right, Leader Bandaka might say I had a personal beef with Kwame Nkrumah. Well, maybe I do, because I think that Kwame Nkrumah actually inferiorized the dark-skinned women inside of Africa by actually asking NASA to actually provide him a wife, and that to me is totally unacceptable.
Tenamara, give that Brother Kilimanjaro. Brother Kwame, can I have some closing comments? And again, can you do it in 1 minute?
Yeah, okay. Give thanks to Namari. I think, the listeners need to understand, and understand that we should not allow the Western media to tell who our heroes are. Briefly, if Kwame Nkrumah was such a bad man, such a vile man, how come he had not 1 penny in any Swiss bank account? He died a poor man. Kwame Nkrumah built more than 500 factories in Ghana, one country alone. Name me any African leader, including the much-held Nelson Mandela. If any African leader has built more than 500 factories. Kwame Nkrumah built more than 1.5 million houses in Ghana. No African leader has done that. Kwame Nkrumah gave people free education for the first time. The essence of free education is not a British concept. Free education came out of the mind of Kwame Nkrumah when he was in America. Free universal health care, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're for upper class, lower class, middle class. Kwame Nkrumah provided that. Finally, the most important thing that Kwame Nkrumah did was to ensure that a country could feed itself. And Kwame Nkrumah made sure that every Ghanaian had at least 3 square meals to eat by building farms, making land available for agriculture, so that the people could actually feed themselves and have food to eat. If this is the actions of, and I'm fine also, he also looked into atomic energy, solar energy, long before the white man ever knew such a thing as atomic energy and solar energy. These were done more than 60 years ago. So if this is the actions of a dictator, then I would love to know what a real dictator is.
Okay. Brother Kwame, as you're coming on next week, I'm sure going to have the opportunity to address some more issues. Thank you so much for your time. One text says, Brother Kwame needs to come in the studio next week. I think Brother Sister need to know Brother Kwame is in Nottingham. There you go. It says, if Kwame was corrupt, if Nkrumah, was corrupt, he would have been backed by the West for decades like Mobutu was. Okay. All right. Give thanks, Brother Kwame. Brother Dida Bandaka, 1 minute.
Next week, because, you know, for us to understand Africa and where Africa is today, we must understand the history and the role of the Osagyefo for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I'm disappointed that my brother Kilimanjaro, who I love and respect so much, has really just entertained us this evening with his own subjective opinions and has really undergirded that with very little by way of facts, context, information. And I do expect better than that from Brother Kilimanjaro. It's not enough to just make accusations. You must come with substantive facts and evidence. And the last point I want to make is that it is on this issue of Machiavelli. How does Brother Kilimanjaro know that the Osagyefo didn't read Machiavelli? I'm sure he did. He had a degree, he had several degrees and master's degrees in a range of different subjects. But that is precisely why he wanted to unite the African continent, and he called for a union army, an African Union army for the to protect the African continent. He knew he could not rely on the Russians. The Chinese had fallen out with the Russians because the Russians were playing kiss and make-up politics with Western Europe and America in the 60s. And even before that. He knew that. So he knew he could not put his trust in in Russia to defend the African continent, and that we had to be our own defenders. We had to be our own liberators. I will leave it there for now, save for closing with the words of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey. Unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. Tendai Mwari.
Last text. You're all seeming to be lost in nationalism, socialism, industrialization, all constructs of the colonialists, imperialists. The whole region of the west of Africa wasn't Ghana, Gambia, etc. before Wazungu came along and divided and conquered the land of Africa. Cha. Tendai Mwari.
We'll unpick that next week. Tendai Mwari. A lot to unpick there.
Yes. Brothers and sisters, we give thanks and praises for your contributions, for your texts, for your calls,